Success often feels like a distant horizon. We imagine it as a place we'll reach someday if we just keep pushing hard enough. But the truth is, success is not a sudden destination. It's a journey, and many times we're much closer than we realize. The signs aren't always obvious, and that's why so many people quit just before the breakthrough. If you've ever wondered whether you're on the right track, pay attention to these subtle signals that suggest success may be nearer than you think. The first sign is restlessness with the status quo. When you start feeling uneasy with where you are, when good enough doesn't feel good enough anymore, that's not failure, it's growth. That discomfort is your inner compass telling you that you're ready for the next level. The people who stop growing are the ones who settle, but if you can't settle, it means you're still moving forward. The second sign is how you respond to setbacks. In the early stages, failures feel like proof that you're not cut out for it. But at some point, that shifts. A rejection becomes feedback, a mistake becomes data, and a delay becomes preparation. If you've reached a place where you can see challenges as part of the process instead of the end of the road, you're already operating from the mindset of someone who succeeds. The third sign is that opportunities start finding you. When you've been showing up consistently, putting in the work, and building quietly, people begin to notice, even if you don't. Invitations, collaborations, and unexpected doors begin to open. What looks like luck is often just the world finally catching up to the work you've been doing in silence. The fourth sign is that your vision feels bigger than your fears. Early on, fear runs the show. Fear of failing, of being judged, of not being enough. But when the picture of what you want becomes so clear and compelling that it drowns out the fear, that's when you know you're getting close. Fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its power to stop you. The fifth sign is the company you keep. When your conversations begin to shift from gossip to growth, from excuses to execution, you know you're in a new environment. The people around you challenge you, stretch you, and remind you of what you're capable of. Success is rarely a solo act, it's a reflection of the voices you allow to shape you. The sixth sign is momentum, small, quiet wins that start to stack on top of each other. Progress often feels slow, almost invisible. But then one day you look back and realize you've built habits, systems, and results that used to feel impossible. Momentum is deceptive because it doesn't feel like speed. It feels like consistency, and consistency always compounds. And finally, the person you're becoming excites you. You realize success is no longer just about the trophy, the title, or the recognition. It's about growth. It's about the confidence you've built, the resilience you've developed, and the way you now carry yourself. When you find pride in the process, not just the outcome, you're already living closer to success than you think. There comes a moment in life when what used to feel comfortable suddenly feels too small. The job that once gave you pride now feels repetitive. The routines that once felt secure now feel suffocating. That restlessness, that quiet dissatisfaction, is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something within you is evolving. Most people mistake this feeling as failure. They assume that if they're unhappy with what they have, it must mean they've made the wrong choices. But dissatisfaction is rarely about poor choices. More often it's about growth. Just like a child eventually outgrows their clothes, you outgrow certain roles, environments, and even identities. Restlessness is the whisper of progress. It's your inner self telling you that you're capable of more, that the ceiling you've been living under is not the sky, but just the roof of the room you've been in. If you didn't feel that discomfort, you would never be pushed to explore, to question, or to expand beyond what's familiar. Think about the times when dissatisfaction changed the trajectory of your life. Maybe you left a job that no longer challenged you. Maybe you stepped away from a relationship that no longer supported your growth. Maybe you moved to a new city because the old one no longer inspired you. That restlessness wasn't weakness. It was a compass pointing you toward what's next. It's easy to confuse comfort with success, but comfort can be a trap. If you feel too comfortable for too long, you stop learning, stop challenging yourself, and stop reaching higher. Restlessness breaks that cycle. It interrupts the illusion that where you are is where you're meant to stay forever. This is why dissatisfaction should never be dismissed as negativity. It should be examined with curiosity. What exactly feels too small for you now? Which parts of your life feel misaligned with who you are becoming? Those questions are powerful because they reveal the gap between your current reality and your potential future. Restlessness often shows up quietly at first. A subtle boredom, a lack of excitement, a sense of going through the motions. Left unacknowledged, it grows louder, turning into frustration or even burnout. But if you pay attention early, you can channel that energy into movement, using dissatisfaction as fuel rather than letting it drain you. The truth is, being restless with the status quo doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're paying attention. It means you've outgrown the old version of yourself, and your next chapter is already waiting to be written. There was a time when every obstacle felt like proof you weren't good enough. A rejection letter felt final, a failed attempt felt humiliating, and a mistake felt like the end of the road. But as you grow, something begins to shift. The sting is still there, but the meaning changes. You begin to recognize setbacks not as a judgment of your worth, but as part of the process of moving forward. When you hit a wall now, you pause and reflect rather than collapse. You ask different questions. Instead of, why me? You start asking, what can this teach me? That shift in perspective transforms setbacks from barriers into stepping stones. The wall is no longer a dead end. It's a surface you can climb, go around, or break through. Lessons don't show up in victories as clearly as they do in failures. Success can mask weaknesses, but failure exposes them. When a plan doesn't work, it forces you to examine your strategy, your effort, and your assumptions. That examination is what creates growth. Without it, you might keep repeating the same patterns and never move closer to your potential. Think of the stories we admire most: entrepreneurs, artists, leaders. Behind every achievement is a history of rejections, wrong turns, and closed doors. What separates them is not that they avoided setbacks, but that they learned to interpret them differently. What others saw as endings, they treated as valuable data points. This doesn't mean setbacks suddenly become easy. They still test your patience, your resilience, and your confidence. But instead of breaking you, they shape you. The pain becomes purposeful because you understand that every failure carries a hidden instruction manual on how to do better next time. There's also a quiet confidence that develops once you've walked through enough setbacks. You no longer fear them in the same way because you know you've survived them before. That memory of survival gives you strength, the reminder that you've been knocked down and stood up again more than once. Setbacks also refine your focus. They strip away illusions, distractions, and unnecessary noise. When something doesn't work out, you're forced to get clear about what truly matters and where your energy should go. That clarity is often the very thing that propels you toward your breakthrough. And perhaps the most important shift is this: setbacks stop defining who you are. They simply become part of the story. You no longer carry them as proof of your inadequacy, but as evidence of your persistence. Each lesson learned becomes another brick laid on the path to the version of you that you are becoming. In the beginning, it feels like no one is watching. You put in the hours, you practice your craft, you show up day after day, and it seems to go unnoticed. The world doesn't applaud consistency at first. It tests it. But over time, consistency builds credibility, and credibility is what draws opportunity to your doorstep. People are always observing more than you think. They may not comment, they may not like your posts, they may not say anything at all, but they are noticing. They are noticing the way you show up even when it's hard, the way you keep improving, the way you don't give up when it would be easier to quit. That quiet observation eventually becomes recognition. Opportunities don't usually arrive in a dramatic way. They come in the form of a message, a recommendation, a casual introduction, or a chance meeting. They rarely feel like lightning striking. More often, they're the result of someone deciding that you've proven yourself trustworthy and consistent enough to take a chance on. This is why consistency matters more than bursts of brilliance. A single moment of talent may impress people, but repeated reliability earns their trust. When people know they can count on you, they think of you first when opportunities arise. What looks like luck is often just the long, delayed reward of showing up consistently. Opportunities also come because effort is magnetic. When people see genuine dedication, they're drawn to it. They want to be part of that energy, to collaborate with it, to support it. Effort is contagious. It signals seriousness, and seriousness attracts resources, mentors, and partnerships that were invisible before. The shift happens when you stop chasing every opportunity and opportunities start chasing you. Instead of sending countless requests, people begin reaching out to you. Instead of convincing others to take you seriously, they already do because your track record speaks louder than any words. That's when you realize the work you thought was ignored has been quietly building a reputation. It's important to recognize that opportunities often come disguised as small beginnings. A small collaboration, a minor role, or a short conversation can be the seed of something bigger. The key is not to dismiss them because they don't look like the big break. Big breaks are usually built from a series of small, unnoticed opportunities seized consistently. And when opportunities start to find you, it's not just about the doors that open, it's about what it reveals about you. It means you've crossed the line from being someone who hopes to be seen to being someone who cannot be ignored. The effort, the consistency, the persistence, it all adds up to a reputation that travels further than you do. Fear never fully disappears. It's there when you start something new, when you step onto unfamiliar ground, when you dare to imagine a bigger life. But there comes a point when the fear is no longer the loudest voice in the room. Instead, your vision begins to take center stage, and the picture of what could be grows stronger than the doubts that once held you back. In the early stages, fear is overwhelming. It convinces you to play small, to stay safe, to avoid risks. But when your vision becomes clear, when you can see almost touch the life you want to build, it begins to outweigh fear. Clarity acts like a magnet, pulling you forward even when fear is tugging at your heels. Clarity doesn't erase uncertainty, but it gives you a reason to face it. When you know what you're working toward, the setbacks feel less discouraging, and the risks feel more worth taking. The fear of failure shrinks compared to the fear of never trying at all. That's when you realize your vision has grown larger than your hesitation. This shift is powerful because it changes the decisions you make. Instead of asking, what if I fail? You begin asking, what if I succeed? Instead of being paralyzed by all the things that could go wrong, you are energized by imagining what could go right. That change in perspective transforms fear from an obstacle into background noise. When your vision grows bigger, it also fuels resilience. Doubt still visits, but it doesn't derail you in the same way. You can picture the future so clearly that it feels almost real, and that mental image becomes a source of strength. You endure more, risk more, and sacrifice more because the vision is worth it. There's also a discipline that comes with clarity. Fear thrives in vagueness and uncertainty, but vision thrives in detail. When you know exactly what you want, you naturally align your habits, your choices, and your energy toward it. Each step forward reinforces the picture, and each small win reminds you that the vision is not just possible, it's already unfolding. Clarity also attracts others. When you can articulate your vision with conviction, people are drawn to it. They see that your belief is stronger than your fear, and belief is contagious. Your vision starts to inspire those around you, creating a ripple effect that extends beyond your own journey. And perhaps the most telling sign of this shift is the way fear begins to feel like a companion rather than an enemy. You no longer wait for it to vanish, you accept that it will walk beside you. But your vision walks taller, speaks louder, and shines brighter, guiding you forward with more certainty than fear could ever hold. One of the clearest signs that you're moving closer to success is noticing a change in the conversations around you. The topics shift. Instead of dwelling on complaints, gossip, or distractions, the dialogue becomes about ideas, possibilities, and growth. The words spoken in your circle act like mirrors, reflecting not just where you are, but where you're heading. The right conversations make you uncomfortable in the best way. They stretch your thinking, force you to question assumptions, and invite you to see beyond your current limitations. When you leave a conversation not with validation, but with inspiration, that's when you know your environment is aligned with your future. These conversations rarely happen by accident. They are drawn to consistency, effort, and vision. People who challenge you tend to appear when you're ready for the next stage of growth, almost like teachers arriving when the student has prepared. What feels like coincidence is often the natural attraction of like-minded energy. It's not just about having people agree with you. The most valuable voices in your circle are the ones who are unafraid to push back, to point out blind spots, to remind you that you can go further. These challenges don't come from criticism, but from belief that you're capable of more than you currently see. Being surrounded by the right conversations also gives you language for your future. Words shape thought, and thought shapes action. When you're consistently exposed to dialogue about growth, resilience, and possibility, it rewires how you think. You start to adopt the vocabulary of success, and that vocabulary shapes the way you approach challenges. Over time, you notice how much lighter the wrong conversations feel in contrast. Complaints, excuses, and negativity no longer satisfy you because you've tasted something richer. The old dialogue that once felt normal now feels draining, while the new conversations give you energy. That shift in appetite is a powerful sign that you've outgrown a former environment. The right circle also creates accountability. When the people around you are striving, you don't want to fall behind. Their progress challenges you to raise your standards, not through competition, but through shared momentum. Success becomes contagious when everyone in the circle is moving forward together. Ultimately, the right conversations remind you that growth is not a solitary pursuit. The words you hear every day shape the person you are becoming. And when you find yourself surrounded by people who stretch, challenge, and inspire you, it's evidence that you've stepped into an environment that matches your direction. Momentum rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause. More often, it feels invisible, almost frustratingly slow. You put in the work day after day and wonder if anything is changing. But beneath the surface, progress is stacking, small win upon small win, until one day it becomes undeniable. In the early stages, it's easy to overlook momentum because it disguises itself as repetition. The routine feels ordinary, the effort feels unremarkable. Yet every repetition strengthens a skill, every action builds discipline, and every choice to keep going adds weight to the foundation you're laying. What feels like nothing happening is actually momentum in motion. Think of how water shapes stone. One drop doesn't change much, but thousands of drops over time can carve valleys. That's how small wins work. A single success may not feel like a breakthrough, but when combined with others, it creates a force powerful enough to shift your entire trajectory. Momentum also shows up in the ease of habits. What once felt difficult, waking up early, practicing your craft, managing your focus, begins to feel natural. The discipline that once required enormous willpower becomes part of your rhythm. That shift from effortful to effortless is momentum showing its hand. It's important to understand that momentum isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it looks like opportunities arriving unexpectedly, but more often it looks like preparation meeting the right moment. The countless hours you thought no one noticed suddenly make sense when the right door opens and you realize you're ready for it. Momentum builds confidence. Each small win becomes evidence that progress is real even if it's slow. And confidence compounds just like results do. The more you prove to yourself that you can take consistent steps, the more certain you become that the larger goals are possible. Another sign of momentum is how setbacks affect you differently. Instead of knocking you completely off course, they slow you down temporarily. The habits and systems you've built keep you anchored, and you bounce back faster. That resilience is momentum at work, carrying you forward even in the face of obstacles. Eventually, you realize that momentum is not about speed, but direction. Progress doesn't need to be fast to be powerful. What matters is that it's consistent, compounding quietly in the background until the day arrives when others call it an overnight success, without ever seeing the years of momentum that built it. There comes a shift in the journey when the finish line no longer feels like the only reward. At first, success is measured in external milestones, titles, recognition, financial markers. But as you continue, you begin to notice something more fulfilling, the changes happening within yourself. The person you're becoming starts to matter more than the goal itself. You begin to see qualities in yourself that weren't there before. Discipline that once felt impossible becomes second nature. Confidence that used to feel fragile grows stronger with every challenge you face. Resilience, patience, and courage are no longer abstract ideas but lived experiences. These traits are signs that growth is underway, and that growth excites you in ways achievement alone cannot. The excitement comes from realizing that you're not just building a career, a project, or a dream. You're building yourself. Every obstacle that tests you leaves behind a new layer of strength. Every setback you recover from leaves behind a deeper sense of resilience. Every choice to keep going refines your identity. You're not only moving closer to success, you're becoming the kind of person who can sustain it. This perspective changes how you view progress. Instead of being impatient for results, you start to value the process. The long nights, the trial and error, the slow pace, they no longer feel wasted because you recognize they're shaping you. Success becomes less about what you get and more about who you are becoming in the pursuit. When the focus shifts to growth, comparison loses its grip. You no longer measure yourself against others because you're too engaged in your own evolution. The question is no longer, am I ahead of them? But am I further along than I was yesterday? That subtle shift frees you from competition and anchors you in progress. It also creates a new kind of motivation. External rewards can fade, but internal growth fuels itself. Once you start to appreciate the person you're becoming, you don't need constant validation from the outside. The pride comes from knowing that you are different from the version of yourself who started. That awareness becomes a source of energy that keeps you moving forward. The journey also feels lighter when growth excites you. Pressure turns into curiosity, and fear turns into exploration. You stop rushing toward a single outcome and instead embrace the unfolding of who you are becoming. The process becomes less about proving yourself and more about discovering yourself. And with that shift, success feels less like a destination and more like a byproduct. It no longer lives only in the future. It exists in the daily transformation you experience. The excitement comes not from waiting to arrive, but from noticing that with every step, you are already arriving into a stronger, braver, and truer version of yourself.